Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Thursday of reInvent. We're coming up on the end. Hopefully everybody has had a great week as you put your headsets on. Hopefully everybody has had a great week and done all of the great reInvent things, networking, learning, having the Vegas experience and doing it all. And I will put in a plug. Hopefully you've saved a little bit of energy for the replay party tonight. For me, it's always a fun way to kind of wrap the business part of the week and have some fun celebrating what's happened. So I always love to find out people's experience at reInvent. How many are here for their first ever reInvent? Wow, lots of first timers. That's fantastic. Love it. Welcome. Hopefully it's been a good week and you're already booking your flight for next year. How many on the other end? 5 or more? 6? 7? All right, awesome. So these are veterans. You newcomers can see that they've had a good time and they keep coming back. So, well, again, thank you so much for being here. By way of introduction, my name is Tim Honeychurch. I am a principal specialist in cloud governance here at AWS. I'll be joined later in the presentation by our valued customer, Dustin Jeffords of Eli Lilly and Company, and then my colleague here at AWS, Alex Merida. But I have the privilege of getting us started, and we'll do that by taking a quick look at our agenda. I'm going to spend the first part of the presentation laying down the foundation of what cloud governance is and how it relates to the topics that Dustin and Alex will be talking about. Dustin's going to come up and tell a real life story. This is one of our favorite things to do, is tell a real life story about problems to be solved, solutions that were available, how that process went, and then what the outcome was. So we're looking forward to hearing from Dustin about what it meant for Lilly. And then Alex will come in and do some more detailed deep dive on some of the technical elements of that solution that Lilly employed. So 3 parts, and hopefully it all connects for you and you come away with some things that are useful that you can take back to your operations. So does that sound good? All right, ready? Let's get into it. So, one of the things that we love to talk about at AWS is the speed of innovation that is enabled by the cloud, right? So customers come to us because they want to move faster. They have business projects, objectives, outcomes that they're looking for, and they want to take advantage of some key characteristics of the cloud to help them get there. One is to move faster. And what we'll be talking about today is how we enable these capabilities through our cloud governance services that are part of Lilly's story. So from a moving faster perspective, our customers want to utilize capabilities like auto-scaling and dynamic resource provisioning to be able to add resources quickly as part of their development process and not be slowed down by legacy IT type of operations. Agility is key. Our customers want to be agile. They want to be able to move quickly in their development cycles, spin up resources to be able to do what they need to do in their projects without being bogged down by operational requirements and centralized IT. And they also want to be able to scale, right? You want to get big and you want to get fast and you want to be efficient. You want to be able to deploy policies such as S3 bucket encryption across all of your S3 buckets, maybe thousands of them across hundreds of accounts. And you want to be able to do that in one motion using scaled capabilities. And those are the things we'll be talking about today in our presentation. Before we get too far into it, though, I do want to lay a bit of a foundation, a foundational definition of cloud governance. So in my role and in what we do here at AWS, we look at cloud governance as a way to enable you to take advantage of the things that the cloud offers. You came here to do something specific, and we like to use the capabilities in governance to help you get there, to align your use of the cloud with those business objectives. And while we talk about cloud governance kind of as a topic, we know it's made up of some interconnected components. So there's a security element, there's an operations element, there's a compliance element, and a cost element. And we like to orchestrate these things with cloud governance capabilities to help you move faster while also adhering to the requirements and the standards that you have across those domains. So as we get into the more technical content, just be thinking about that definition, right? A set of tools, capabilities that helps you align your use of the cloud with what you're trying to achieve. But we know that implementing these things is not necessarily easy or automatic, and you'll hear from Dustin that there's work involved in accomplishing what they were able to accomplish. And one of my favorite things about the role that I have now at AWS is that I talk to customers a lot, right? And I hear from customers about what they're trying to achieve, what the challenges are in their world, their unique requirements, and what they're trying to customize to help them solve problems for their business. And then I have the ability to go back to our service teams and say, hey, I talked to these customers, this is what they need, and be able to advocate for customers and future roadmaps and capabilities in our services. So, these challenges are what we're hearing from customers. And I also had the opportunity to experience that when I was a customer. I was a customer for about 8 years, part of a team that built a security platform, a SaaS security platform in AWS. And like many of you may have experienced, we started with 3 developers and 1 account and scaled that out to hundreds of accounts and very complex services that served our customers. And so we experienced some of these challenges as part of that as well. And I'll note that the challenges that I'm going to share here and talk through are just the tip of the iceberg. We know there's many more, but these are very common from what we've heard. The first is resources. Does anybody here have more human resource capacity than they know what to do with? More budget for tools than you know what to do with? I don't see any hands raised, right? In fact, it's quite the opposite. Everybody's struggling to be able to get more done with less and less, particularly as we enter the AI age. And the expectation is that you can utilize technologies like that to help you do even more with even less. So we know that implementing the principles that we're talking about today, the solutions, is a challenge because we need resources to be able to do that. So that's acknowledged. The second is being able to, as we get into more detail about cloud governance, when you think about implementing controls across those 4 domains we mentioned, across an entire environment, being able to define those, deploy those, and maintain those is not an easy thing to do, right? And we acknowledge that. Third, and when we think about that agile development cycle and supporting a culture of agility, we recognize there's a balance point. There's a balance between giving a lot of control and independence to developers, but also on the other end, trying to maintain standards and controls from a security and cost and compliance perspective. So maintaining that balance is always tricky. And then lastly, and certainly not least, is maintaining compliance with ever-evolving standards. And I'm sure you all here are subject to multiple compliance frameworks. Anybody specifically subject to PCI DSS in your world, okay? So you all probably know that when PCI DSS 4.0 was launched or released in 2022, there were 60 new controls added to the framework, right? So when you have that dropped in your lap and now we need to deploy that across a complex environment, that's a very challenging thing to do. And these are things that we acknowledge and we hear from our customers and we look to bring solutions for. So, the good news is that we look at, again, back to our definition, we look at cloud governance as a set of capabilities that helps you achieve things and overcome some of these challenges. And what I'll be doing is walking through, calling out 4 characteristics of Cloud Governance Foundation in AWS that will reflect some of what Dustin and Lily went through in their transformation. So let's take a look at those. The first characteristic that we want to emphasize is AWS Cloud Services provide managed capabilities. So if you're familiar with Control Tower, you know that it can deploy, configure, and maintain for you up to 14 different underlying services. And that relieves the pressure from you of having to do that deployment, configuration, and ongoing management yourself. So examples would be AWS Organizations, IAM Identity Center, and AWS Config, which if you think about config just by itself, There's a lot of complexity in being able to deploy that and manage it to your standards. Control Tower can do a lot of that heavy lifting for you as a managed service as it continues to be updated behind the scenes by our teams. So manage is number one. Number two, controlled. So we talked about controls, deploying that across a complex environment. Also part of Control Tower is a set of built-in controls ready for you off the shelf to be able to deploy across your environment. So proactive controls, detective controls, preventive controls are there for you to implement according to your needs without having the need to build them and deploy them by yourself. Back to agility. So we think about, again, that tricky balance, and we'll use account provisioning and resource provisioning as our example. Being able to use automation and infrastructure as code to allow your developers to deploy the resources that they need, but doing so in a controlled way according to your requirements is really a critical element. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today. Using Account Factory for Terraform to do deployments for you according to preset conditions that you want, enabling that agility. And then last is scalability. Being able to deploy a requirement at scale across an entire scope of accounts and resources in one motion. We'll talk again about Account Factory for Terraform and how it enables you to manage a large and complex environment, multiple accounts and resources in one motion. So based on those four characteristics, we're going to have Dustin come up and walk through a transformation that Lilly and company went through to modernize their cloud governance environment. Dustin?
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dustin Jefford. I am the Cloud Platform or Cloud Foundation lead at Eli Lilly and Company for our AWS platform. Today, I'm going to talk to you, as Tim mentioned, about our journey into modern cloud governance, specifically our transition from the legacy AWS landing zone or ALZ solution into Control Tower and Account Factory with Terraform. But first, a little bit about who we are. Lilly unites caring with discovery to create medicines that make life better for people around the world. Founded in 1876 and headquartered in Indianapolis, we employ more than 44,000 people worldwide. We do clinical research in more than 55 countries, and we market our products globally. With the global scale of our business, we require governance technologies that are robust, scalable, and ready to adapt to the constant changing demands of working around the world. Our journey in central cloud governance and organization management really began in 2018 when we adopted the ALZ or the AWS landing zone. At the time, Lilly was expanding rapidly into the cloud, as I'm sure a lot of businesses were. And we needed a way for our central teams to manage that expansion so that developers and application teams could use those services safely. However, the very next year, AWS released Control Tower. And while we were very excited to see a managed solution become available, we had already invested very heavily in Landing Zone. At the time, we were managing somewhere between 400 and 500 AWS accounts in our organization, and offering 3 to 4 standard account patterns. We had also tied some critical foundational automation to the landing zone, so network configurations and identity management permissions. And so we decided at that time to continue to invest in landing zone until Control Tower could mature to meet some of our needs. And that continued all the way up through 2023 with the final release of the AWS landing zone. By that point, we were up to, I think, 6 standard account patterns, numerous ad hoc custom account patterns, and somewhere between 14 and 1,500 AWS accounts. As we continued to grow and scale, the initial advantages we found with the ALZ service, the ability to deploy configuration changes across all of our accounts at scale became a hindrance. The monolithic pipeline approach of ALZ, as we continued to create and grow into the environment, started taking longer and longer to push changes. By the time we hit 2023, a single execution of the pipeline would take us 8 hours to complete. And that's assuming that it finished, right? More often than not, it started to fail. And so we found and watched the central teams become a bottleneck for innovation for the business. That led us then to 2024, when we made a decision to invest in and modernize our governance solution. So as we looked at our landscape and looked through and what we wanted out of a new solution, we identified a couple critical requirements. First, the new solution needed to be a managed solution. As much fun as it was managing a bespoke, custom, monolithic, giant landing zone, we really didn't want to deal with that operational overhead moving forward. We needed to enhance and increase agility for both our central teams and for our business teams and service areas. Too often, as I mentioned, we found ourselves being the bottleneck to innovation. We also needed to increase scalability. We needed, the business was not going to continue, the business was not going to stop expanding into the cloud, and we needed to be able to handle the increase as we needed to be able to handle the business increasing in that direction. And we needed to simplify our governance. I alluded earlier to some critical foundational automation pieces that were tied to some of our early landing zone architecture. And that resulted in overly complex SCPs and really intricate conditional statements, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we needed to simplify that so that we could adopt new features. And that led us to Control Tower with Account Factory for Terraform. And so in 2024, we worked with AWS Professional Services to kick off a project to transition all 1,500 accounts and the tens, hundreds of thousands of resources being managed by our foundational code from ALZ into Control Tower and AFT. We kicked off a 6-month project beginning at the end of 2024 and going through the beginning of 2025. We picked this time frame because there's lower developer activity at Lilly over the end of the year time frame, and we felt like it would reduce the potential impact to ongoing initiatives and potential product releases. But what that did mean is that we needed to be able to do this quickly so that we didn't impact anything coming in the new year, and we needed to do this transparently. We could not have any downtime or potential for downtime for any of our foundational and centralized services. So what does this look like? The first thing we did isn't actually on this slide, but we stood up Control Tower, and then we enrolled all of our accounts and OUs into Control Tower. Once we got that finished, or I guess rather in parallel, we went and decoupled our resources from the old CloudFormation stacks that landing zone uses to manage the resources. We did this by updating all of our resource definitions to use the deletion policy retain statement. And what that simply means, for anyone who doesn't know, is that if you then, or when you delete the CloudFormation stacks, the resources remain behind. They don't get deleted. So we went back through, and there was a lot of repeated executions of that monolithic pipeline. So it took us a while, but we got all of those resource definitions updated. Then we went and developed Terraform modules to replace those resource definitions. And this is where we did take some opportunity to simplify some of our automation and decouple some things. Once we completed that, And those two steps very much manual. And once we completed that, we implemented an automation. We designed and implemented some step functions and lambdas that did a couple things for us and helped accelerate this transition. The first thing that it did is it went across the entire environment and scraped all of our deployed stack sets, our foundational deployed stack sets. Pulled in all of the input parameters and output values, sent that over to Amazon Bedrock. I think it was the Claude 3 model at the time, and used AI to generate Terraform import commands. Those commands were then manually validated as they came back to make sure there weren't any unexpected create or delete statements in there. And once we validated that, we approved the continuation of the script execution, and the script executed those imports for us and generated a series of state files. We then took those state files and uploaded those to the account factory for Terraform code base and registered each account with AFT. And then the script executed those AFT pipelines. And Alex will talk a little bit more about what that looks like in detail. But once those pipelines were executed, we got a second or a third piece of validation that no resources were being destroyed or changed or retained or rebuilt. And effectively, it synchronized AFT with the resources deployed. So at this point, all resources are now being managed through Control Tower and through Account Factory for Terraform. And then we went back and we deleted those CloudFormation stacks and decommissioned the ALZ environment. And by using this process, you see 3 of the steps, the big chunk of the process is automated. By doing this, we were able to move all 1,500 AWS accounts, the tens of thousands of resources associated with those stacks, from ALZ and into Control Tower within 6 months. 3-month upfront development time, and then the automated piece took about 3 months to complete. One other advantage I wanted to highlight that we were able to do as part of this, which is resulted in significant benefit for us. When we initially built out the ALZ, as I mentioned, we tied a number of pieces of core foundational functionality to specifically where an account sat within the org hierarchy. So if you were in a dev account, you got dev permissions and a dev networking set, a dev set of networking configurations that you could use. And this resulted in a very flat OU structure. Made things very complicated, very difficult to manage from a central perspective. We had redundant SCPs and very complex SCP conditionals. So not just complex to manage, but complex to expand on. When new features were released like RCP or resource control policies, we struggled to get those features implemented. By decoupling that automation from the OU, when we refactored our resource definitions into Terraform, it allowed us to adopt a more hierarchical organization and OU structure. We went with a workloads-based architecture for a number of reasons. But what this did allow for is significant reduction in the number of redundant guardrails, way simplified SCP configurations. Conditionals became very straightforward in the few instances where we still needed them. And easier onboarding of new patterns. Prior to this adoption, we had central teams who maybe wanted to host an EKS cluster for the global organization, right? Prior to this, the the upfront foundational changes that would be needed to allow EKS to run in the way that they need it to run would take a minimum of 1 to 2 months of development time and implementation. Executing that 8-hour-long pipeline, adjusting, executing again, promoting to production, executing again, testing. With this change, we are now able to set up a new OU for a workload that is non-standard and execute and apply any required SCP changes within the space of a sprint, so 2 weeks. So a significant reduction in implementation time from the central teams. And so what does this look like from an outcomes perspective? 75% reduction in manual effort, 300% increase in code push frequency, a faster creation of OUs and feature delivery, like I said, from 2 months down to 2 weeks. Security and configuration updates can now be deployed across all accounts in under 5 hours. And it's nice to see the percentages up here, but what this looks like in reality for Lilly is we finished this project in Q1 of 2025. That next quarter, before we had really been able to continue to invest and build out our control tower and AFT presence, we saw and were able to push more configuration changes in that quarter, in Q2, than we were able to push in the entirety of the previous year, 2024. And so we no longer are a blocker to innovation for our business teams. Because as much as I can point to these numbers up here, Lilly's journey to modern cloud governance is about more than just technology. It's about empowering our teams and accelerating innovation and ensuring that our infrastructure can keep pace with our mission to improve lives around the world. And now I'll welcome Alex to the stage to talk a little bit more about Control Tower.
Good afternoon, everybody. Quick question for everyone. How many of you heard about our controls-only experience that launched last week? See, this is like the common thing I've heard all week. I did a little bit of booth duty on the expo floor the other day, and everyone kept coming up to me like, hey, I want to be able to use landing zones, and I want to be able to just use managed controls, but I don't want to just set up landing zones. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit today. So, bringing it all together first with AWS Control Tower, for those that are a little unfamiliar, we orchestrate a lot of services on your behalf. This allows you to really focus on the security and compliance needs of your organization. You can get started in under 30 minutes or less with AWS Control Tower. But let's walk through a little bit of what we set up for you. So first, when you set up Control Tower, you're going to get 2 accounts. You're going to get a log archive account, and you're going to get an auditing account. Both of these accounts help meet your logging and requirement needs within your organization. And then next, we're going to set up 2 OUs for you. Now, you have the ability to make the sandbox OU optional, but what is not optional is the security OU, which comes pre-configured with 2 additional accounts. One has your AWS backup vaults in it, and the other one's a delegated administrator account where you can manage your AWS backup service. And then last, Account Factory lives within Control Tower. Now, Account Factory allows you to provision specific types of AWS accounts to your organization using account baseline resources that you've perused from the Managed Controls catalog and applied to your organization. There's 3 additional value adds that I want to call out really quickly for Control Tower. So number 1, you do get AWS Identity Center federated access to your applications. Number 2, we're going to enable AWS Config and AWS CloudTrail, and we're going to write those both to a centralized S3 bucket that's located in your log archive account. And then last, any of those managed controls that you've turned on for your landing zone will be backed by Security Hub, CloudTrail, and CloudFormation, and that ensures that any newly provisioned accounts do meet those compliance standards that you've set in place already. So we talked a little bit about Account Factory in the previous slide, and I do want to talk a little bit more in depth about that. So Account Factory exists to help provision those AWS accounts for you with those pre-configured either security baseline resources, or maybe it's some of those managed controls that you put in place. But we also just released a new feature when it comes to Account Factory that allows you to Account Factory to live completely within AWS Control Tower using the AWS organization's account primitives. And it no longer requires the previous required service catalog integration. So how does this look today? You're going to go ahead and just navigate directly to your AWS management console for organizations and create your account there, or you can use the programmatic call create account API from AWS organizations. Once the account has been provisioned, all you're going to do is go ahead and move that OU, or move that account to the Control Tower OU, and then once it's placed in that OU, you will apply any of those managed controls that you selected from the control catalog. We'll also put any of those pre-configured services there. So CloudTrail, config, backup, anything along those lines. So now we're going to walk a little bit through Account Factory for Terraform and what that kind of looks like. So right hand of the screen, of course, one of the very specific things that you're going to need is you're going to need Control Tower deployed. Next after that, you're going to set up an Account Factory administration account. This is specifically just for Account Factory. Going back to the right-hand side, I just want to point out here that we did just mention that service catalog is no longer required, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're here. And the big call out here is that any of your account vending or account orchestration needs are going to occur in that block. So this is a GitOps-driven model. So essentially, a user will create an account request file within the Account Factory configuration repository and commit it via git push into the repo. In this scenario, we are using AWS code commit, but we do support any code star connection request. Next, once you've pushed that change, it'll activate your code pipeline and write those changes to Amazon DynamoDB. This gives you a traceability plane for any of those changes. Next, Account Factory is going to go ahead and communicate with AWS Control Tower to figure out, does this account need to be updated, or do I need to provision a new account? If yes, it'll go directly to Control Tower to make those vending requests and vend your account as specific. If it doesn't need to do that, it's going to go straight to applying some of those customizations that you already defined. So maybe it's some of those networking configurations that you want specific to your organization. Maybe it's some security guardrails that you set up in the very beginning. All of that occurs there. And then last, Account Factory applies the defined account level specific or global customizations using Terraform. When we deploy these configurations within the account, whether it's newly provisioned or updated, the account then meets all of your specific compliance needs or security needs that you're setting forth as an organization. So now that you've heard about Account Factory, you've heard a little bit about Terraform, how it's technically executed, how Eli Lilly is using it. Why should you guys use it? So first, Account Factory customizes new and existing accounts through a pipeline-based workflow. This meets the requirements of your organization to meet scalability or agility needs, as it automates the entire workflow on your behalf. And for customers using Terraform, it fulfills the gap of your infrastructure as code as a gap. Number two, deployment and configuration artifacts are stored in version control repositories. This is important because it ensures that you're working up the most up-to-date code, and it gives you traceability of that code. I have to do a rollback? Well, good thing I already have this stored in a stored repository. Third, we support published modules from the Terraform registry and custom modules. This gives customers a starting point, but it also enables you to fully customize the environment to what you need. You need to tailor it specific to what your requirements are, whether your PCI needs, whether you're HIPAA compliant, or any of these other specific compliance frameworks that you're looking for. And then last, for our really security-minded folks, we support delegated administration. A lot of customers come to us and say, hey, I don't want to log into the management account every day to do specific actions. What can you do to help me here? Well, we have delegated admin for that. Next, I want to talk a little about controls and what that means. So recently, we've heard a lot about shifting to the left. Has anyone ever heard the term shifting to your left in any of your all-hands meetings, any security meetings? See a couple of hands in the crowd? Awesome. So we're shifting left from just detective controls, right? Controls were designed to alert you after an event has already occurred. We're shifting to the left with proactive controls, controls that are designed to prevent resource mutation from occurring. And going even further, we're shifting farther to the left with preventative controls, controls that are there to ensure that no bad code is ever shipped to your production environments. So what does this look like in the controls catalog? So the controls catalog is a single source of truth for AWS managed controls. And soon we're going to have all of the AWS managed controls here. With our recent launch with the controls only experience, now you can go directly to the controls catalog without having to set up that landing zone requisite. So I can go here, peruse whatever controls I need, any metadata, any of those corresponding compliance frameworks, and apply those controls really easily. If you need detective controls, you're going to go ahead and activate AWS config at an account level, at an OU level, organization-wide. You want proactive or preventative controls, all you're going to do is enable trusted access and choose what regions you want to operate in as well. It's never been easier to activate some of these managed controls for your environments than today. And I can't harp on that enough, just because I've heard so much from customers this week saying, like, we definitely just want to use controls for our environments. We have such a hard time getting through some of our auditing pieces or looking at these compliance pieces. Well, I very much urge everyone after this call, go and tell your teams, go check out the managed controls. So now that we've talked about a little bit about Account Factory, how it customizes your accounts, the value of managed controls as well, how do we bring them together? You heard Dustin talk about how they migrated to Control Tower and established their Account Factory pipeline infrastructure. Figuring out how to protect your workloads with managed controls is next. So you can deploy those managed controls using Terraform within your Account Factory pipelines to keep resource deployments within a single approach. How is this beneficial to us? It's simple to manage. You're essentially baking everything into a single pipeline, and that reduces your costs, your operational costs, but it does come back with some drawbacks. So you're gonna have your Account Factory administrator is gonna have permanent elevated permissions. And secondly, you are taking dependency risk by relying on a single Account Factory pipeline in that scenario. So how does it look again? I'm gonna take us back to that architectural slide that I showed in the very beginning. So any of those deployed controls within your Account Factory pipeline will essentially be baked in the AWS code build and AWS step functions piece where you're applying the customizations directly. But if you wanna use Terraform, everything's gonna occur in that green box there. It ensures that deployments are done through a single approach, and then you can keep track of where anything is. And I'm going to bring Tim back up to talk about our key takeaways. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Dustin. One of my favorite things about a customer-led session like this is the impact on the business. So we talked about enabling organizations through improving governance and becoming more modern. And in the case of Lilly, it's a really meaningful outcome because that is enabling them really indirectly to help create better products for their customers, which is a very meaningful output. So we like to connect these technical things that we're talking about to real world, and that's a real meaningful one. So we do want to hit on three kind of technical takeaways. Again, our goal here is always that you all come away with something that either reinforces what you've done or inspires you to look into something else that can help you advance your operations and advance your organization. So we'll touch on three takeaways. The first one is being able to leverage this governance foundation to enable these organizational objectives. We didn't touch much on resilience today, but it ties in as well. But enabling agility and scale and moving faster is one of the core objectives here, and we hope you pick something up from this session that could drive that for your organization. The next one is being able to simplify the governance operation through services like Account Factory for Terraform. Being able to leverage something that was built to drive automation and standardization is a way for you to simplify your operation and provide consistency and compliance. The third is managed, right? Being able to leverage managed services, and in particular what Alex mentioned about managed controls, is super, super important. And I'll add to that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm constantly talking to customers and working with our service teams. We're always looking to add more to our controls library, right? The things that you need to drive consistency, compliance, meeting your cost, security, operational, and compliance standards. We continue to add to our repo of rules that, again, are managed for you behind the scenes. So hopefully some of that resonated, and you can take some things away and work on that, following up with your account teams. We, of course, would love to talk to you afterward. We'll be kind of lingering around and happy to take some questions and connect with us afterward. And then last but not least, please make sure to go into the app and complete the survey. That's our request of you. We thank you so much for being here and spending the whole session with us. So enjoy the rest of reInvent.